Welcome back, I'm Ken, and this is the Shop Mini RC. Today, we're checking out this guy. This is the new FMS FCX24, and we're going to dive into it. Let's check it out. This guy. We ordered this yesterday. I don't think these are supposed to be out yet. I think somebody on Amazon might have messed up. Maybe. Bam! FMS. Again, not sponsored, purchased with our own money. You know, we should put up a PayPal link. If you guys are interested in... I've seen other bigger channels do this. They have Patreons and give away 50 cents worth of stickers for $5 a month, or some just have their PayPals and you can donate to their PayPal. Maybe we'll do that. Let's get it out of here. There she is. Tuned up parts included, it says. We'll see. So this is supposed to come with 4 additional upgrades. What if I just opened it up and threw it in the box with it? There's our upgrade gift. This is it. One upgrade. What is this? Steering C-hub? That's it. That's all we got. Why does the website say 4? It says 4 of 13. If you look in the description on Amazon, it says, get a package, a gift pack of 4 items out of 13 possible items. This doesn't look like it's 4 items. It looks like 1. It literally looks like $1 worth of stuff. Okay, sad. But this! Look at this! Ooh, it feels pretty good. It's got some screen protector here. Let's pull that off. Can we get that off without breaking our windshield wipers? There we go. There we go. The detail is awesome. It's really well detailed. Put some foamies in here so that you're not sitting on your suspension for months while it's in a warehouse. That's good. Got our transmitter. Let's look at our transmitter. Probably a normal FMS transmitter. Look at all these buttons and gadgets. All right, that's exciting. Let's get this box out of here. I don't think there's anything left. No. We didn't really show the box very much, so we'll go ahead and show that and get a good look. Pause and read it all. You have some schematics. Show off some of the extra parts that they have. Metal drive shaft, some differential, metal gears, different aluminum upgrades, a track unit. That looks cool. There's the different colors again. These schematics, which we will use later. And in the back. I don't know why this says tune-up parts included. Pretty sure these are already installed. It says battery for transmitter. It did not... Oh, not included. Why does it say it includes it then? I don't understand that. Includes, not included. Maybe it's saying it's one more thing you need. It's just telling you. Anyway. There she be. In this box. It's kind of cool. FMS box, styrofoam. It looks cool. So this is our first FMS product. I dig the packaging. It's pretty good packaging. I mean, it seems a little better packed than the Axials, to be fair. A bunch of messed up stickers. That kind of sucks. Hopefully they come off still nicely. These are the Doug Power Wagon. You mean Dodge? Dodge Power Wagon, maybe? We can't say Dodge. We have to call it the Doug. Surprised they didn't call it the Doge with all the Doge hype for crypto boys out there. Our extra wheel. Here, we're going to do this right now. Bam. These are 37 and a half. Here, what is that? 1.4s. So these are 1.4 inch wheels and tires, which means, I bet you, where's she at? The mudslingers are larger, so you could throw mudslingers on here just fine. I'm sure any of the larger tires on the 1 inch wheels will do fine. Mudslingers on this guy would be cool. All right, anyway, What is this? This is our 2S. Yep. So this is our 2S 5C. That's kind of low. That's wild. It's a 5C, but it's 380 milliamps. So that's pretty cool. Let's compare this to a stock. Do I have a stock sitting around here? Stock battery for an SCX24, 350 milliamp hours, 30C, versus the 380 at 5C. Very low discharge rate. There's the width. So slightly larger width, but much smaller footprint. We have some blue batteries that are very similar to this size. I wonder if they're the same type of battery, basically. Actually, I think they're a little bit more square. They're a little bit more square in that regard, but still rectangular in this regard. So they're a little thicker, but narrower. I don't know. We'll have to compare them at some point, I guess. Our cheapy charger that you should never use. Looks like we have some extra O-rings. This is our roll cage. Some C-clips, maybe to shim the preload the springs. Gas can. And our mount for our tires. All right, so we got this thing all opened up. You saw a little box opening. Let's go ahead and dive a little deeper into it. Comes with our instruction manual. Showed this gas tank. It comes with little tiny screws. There's actually two of them, but you use one screw to put the fuel filler neck in, and then I guess you glue this. You're supposed to glue it together because there's nothing else to hold it together. And then we've got some 3M double-sided sticky tape, I guess, to stick onto the bottom and mount it. Mount it right here in the back. It also comes with a bunch of different sized O-rings, probably for the shocks, and I'm not sure what the larger O-rings are for, but maybe we'll find out. And then again, C-clips to preload the shocks. And our free gift, which I felt was kind of misleading, so I don't know what's going on there. A little misleading. Speaking of misleading, the scale of this thing is far from 1/24th. So we're going to go on a little bit of what we hate first. But this thing is pretty awesome. So don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on it. I just wish that they were a little more accurate in their description and what they were trying to sell. So one thing right off the bat, the scale. Let's go ahead and get our body on here a little better. All right, so Gladiator, C10, Bronco. Now, when I spoke to FMS, they said, well, it is 1/24 scale. Look at the wheelbase. And we'll put a little graphic up here that you can see in just a second. And they're not wrong. The wheelbase for what the original Power Wagon was is correct from hub to hub, from the center to the center. That's the correct 1/24 scale wheelbase. However, these tires would be like 4.5 feet tall. And that wheelbase is meant for a truck with a full length bed, which means the bed should be this long, right? That's a lot of bed. So imagine if you had the C10 with the extra bed on it. That's how long the truck should be with this wheelbase. So the cab is absolutely and almost comically too large. This is very clearly a 1/18 scale cab. Okay. And here, we'll go ahead and show the graphic. Check it out. So you can see what the real Power Wagon looks like. That's a real one. And if this truck was to be built in real life to the scale that they've got and the dimensions that they've got, it would be that big. It's huge. The cab is almost, the cab itself is, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's comically huge. So again, I'm going to get this hate out of the way because this thing is not 1/24th. And it makes me really sad because I love 1/24 scale. I mean, even the SCX24s are not technically 1/24th. They are much closer to 1/20th. I believe the Gladiator is like a 1/23rd, but the Bronco it's basically a 1/21st. The C10 is a 1/21st-ish. The GLU, same thing. I think the GLU is a little closer, but either way, these are already 1/20th scale. And this thing is huge. It dwarfs it when you look at the cab, right? Look at the cab. It's just huge looking, and how tall it is. It's hard to tell when you're... There we go. I mean, that's a pretty tall cab. Again, if we were to pop all that off and put the cab on SCX24, it'd look pretty ridiculous. Actually, let's do it. I mean, there's a chassis side by side. I mean, the wheel wells are huge. Again, this cab should be much, much smaller. It should be this far forward to get us a bed and stop about here. Right? So, anyway, enough ranting on the size. It is, let's just put it out there. It is not 1/24 scale, not even close. It is not even 1/20th scale. It is a 1/18th scale, and especially with these wheels. Okay, again, 4.5 feet tall. This truck would be 9.5 feet tall in real life, which is crazy. Anyway, it doesn't look too out of place from a wheelbase standpoint. And if you were to pop this off, pull all this off, let's get this out of here. which, by the way, I think you're supposed to glue these into here because they don't stay very well. All it takes is a little tumble and they fall out. But if you were just to glue these top two pieces into the cage, the rest does snap in, so you're good. I like that it comes with the extra wheel. These wheels and tires are awesome. These are much softer than the picture shows. There's no foams in there. You have no foams, but they do conform fairly well, and so that's good. There's not a ton of space, but these are true bead locks, so we'll probably pull one out apart a little bit later and I'll show you. So let's just compare chassis real quick. So it is a tad, just a tad, longer in the wheelbase from basically axle to axle. Maybe 2 millimeters. You can just see at the back there, just a little bit longer on this one. But here's the biggie. That's how much wider it is. Okay, significantly wider. Now, most of us widen our trucks and put bigger wheels and tires on anyway, so it's not a big deal. I think these are pretty close to the, we already showed it once, but these are very close to the mudslinger. We can just show that again real quick. I know we showed it earlier, but just since we're talking about it, the mudslingers are actually a little larger, so that's fitting if you're going for that look. It is a axle-mounted servo, so that's nice. One thing I do not like is these steering rods. They seem, the links are a little weak. They're a little weak. So that would be a good upgrade. There is no servo saver though. So maybe that's their answer to not having a servo saver. So instead of having a servo saver, they just have a little bit more flexible links here, which means if you're getting, see that? Okay. But that means you also don't have to change your servo horn if you're going to put on new aluminum links. You already have a nice stable servo horn versus dealing with the crappy axial servo saver. Okay. So I don't know if that's a plus or a minus, but it's a trade-off for sure. I use the larger C steering hubs so that you have an actual, you know, knuckle, full knuckle in there. It's not just like portals on top of a knuckle. So that's kind of nice. Here's another gripe that I have on the box and even in the manual. It states 4-link suspension. You can see it, 4-link suspension. This thing does not have a 4-link suspension. It literally has a front and rear 3-link. 1, 2, and then your wishbone. It wish it were a 4-link, but it not. 1, 2, 3. So it's literally double 3-link suspension. We're probably going to do a video at some point talking about the benefits and drawbacks to both 4-link and 3-link. 4-link isn't strictly better than a 3-link suspension. 3-link has its advantages, and 4-link also has its own advantages. So at some point we'll talk about that. But yes, just know this is not a 4-link. The first thing you'll notice is the receiver has a ton of ports. So let's walk through that real quick. Most of these ports are for lights. If you want, you can pause here and look at this. But basically we have turn signals, right and left, a reverse, a brake, a tail light, your positives and your negatives, a fog light port. This shows 2 of them. Headlight port, another headlight port, and your channels 1, 3, and 4. Now your channel 4 controls basically your headlights on and off. They show that kind of here. There's a table, and basically there's 5 positions in that channel 4, but really only 3 of them do anything. You have basically a lights, white headlights on, and then you have white headlights, they're actually yellow, but on bright, and then it's the same brightness. So I don't know what the different, why there's 5 different. Maybe it's like a 5-position, you can do like a 5-position servo, or if you had different types of lights, you could do something. Again, I'm not sure why they have 5 clicks, but you do have to click through 5 times to cycle through the headlights. And 3 of the 5 are lights, 2 of them are not. The ESCs are very, very similar in size. So you can see that here. They're basically the same size, but this one has a ton more features. Mind you, they are all using these smaller plugs. So you will not be able to use standard servo plugs. You'll have to use, you know, this little guy. So all the servo ports and light ports are basically the Molex 1.25s or some variant of that. And then the battery is also the Molex battery plug. So you can't use the, you know, traditional SCX24. You'll have to make adapters. This is the same plug that's on the Enduro 24 as well as the CR24. So it's not completely unfamiliar. Usually I switch out all mine anyway. We end up making them all regular JSTs on the SCX24s. So we may end up doing that here. But just so you know, you can't just use a SCX24, even though the battery is it's a 2S, 380 milliamps with 5C, which we thought was odd, but it is 5C. Here's your little battery retaining strap. It's just kind of this rubber band, and it's interesting. It doesn't work the best. It's not horrible, actually, but you just got to know how to do it. So you basically will, let me show you here. When you bring it across, you twist it once, and then clip it down. Putting that twist in there keeps it from dropping to the side. If you don't put the twist in there, it ends up just kind of dropping down the sides. Here, see, like this. Right? So you have this kind of cross in there, and that'll hold the battery in place. Yeah, you don't just put it straight across, you put a twist in it. Anyway, I just noticed that some other people in the groups were like, the battery holder is horrible. Well, if you twisted it, it doesn't come out, so it's actually not that bad. What else we got here? The power switch is right here on the front. It's just a push button. Okay. Another thing you'll notice is it's got a servo right here. This servo is for the transmission on the 2-speed transmission, and you can see the rod right there. It's a physical transmission switch of gears where the servo will actually move positions and change gears, and it is very cool. We'll show you in a running video the difference in speed and torque. It also has a much larger motor. Okay, you can see there, this is the it's a 130 motor, so that is very large versus the 030 motor that these come with. It's even bigger than the 050 motor, so there's a lot of power and a lot of torque, which is nice. The frames, here, let's actually do this. I'm curious about the frame rails. We hadn't looked at this yet. So this is a box frame versus the SCX24 uses like metal frame rails with your battery trays and your ESC trays in there. But those are metal side rails, whereas this is a single piece nylon box frame. Now there could be benefits to that. There's also drawbacks. Let's see the width. I'm curious, since we're talking about scale earlier already, we'll do the width of the frame here. So to the outsides of the belly plate, we're looking at 37 millimeters on the SCX. And here, it's just slightly wider at 42. So it is a wider frame by about 5 millimeters. One thing that we really like about the SCX24 is the fact that because everything's, we have all the bolts in the frame and whatnot, we can move our shock locations into different spots. Now, they're not necessarily meant for the shock to go there, but it does allow us to move our shock locations and angle the shocks more if we'd like. Unfortunately, on the FCX24, there's only one shock mounting position. And you could put holes in the frame, potentially. I don't know how the screw will hold. Depends on if you thread it or not. But if you throw threaded holes in there, you can probably move this shock location down on some of this stuff. It is kind of inset, so you might end up with some binding if you end up putting it too far out, especially like on this front if you drop it here. And I don't know where the body will mount. The body may not go on there correctly. These little tabs are what hold the body on. This is the quick release that they're talking about. You can see here is 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 4 little tabs. They click down and they spread out and they snap in. You basically just pinch them together, and the body pops off. It would be easy to throw some magnets on here and cut these off and throw magnets on there and magnet mount it. So that's nice. It's not the worst body mount. It's better than body clips in my opinion. I hate body clips. You always lose them and they're unsightly. They mess up the look of the body. So I prefer magnet mounts, but this is good from the factory. I don't hate it. Man, that cab looks so good. I just wish it was 1/24 scale. Came with a bunch of stickers, so those are pretty cool. Butcher Butch. You can throw those on there. It'll make it look a lot better. Oh, it'll make it look a lot better. It already looks pretty dang good, but it'll give it some personalization. There are no O-rings on any of these shock mounting positions, so just something to be aware of. Also, this is a lot like the Enduro 24, where the links and the shocks are the same mounting position. So it uses like a double ball joint to mount the shocks at the end of the links, versus on the SCX24, you have a separate shock mounting position and then links. I really prefer this. I wish that they would have done that on these axles. That would have been amazing. We could have just swapped these axles over to an SCX24 chassis, or use a lot of the parts from the SCX24 onto here, the aftermarket parts from all the different manufacturers. Because of this setup, it might be kind of rough. As far as links are concerned, you can see these links are not pinched between a mount like the SCX24. So you can see here, they're always in between a mount, so it's not actually, there's nothing holding there. Other than the screw going through and then the side to sides being contained, whereas this has no containment on the sides, so you have to make sure that your links are part of, they're attached to a ball joint there. The rear links, like I said, are Y wishbone 3-link. The drive shaft, well, it looks metal because it's shiny, it's plastic, but it seems fine. There's no interference, there's no binding in there, it feels pretty smooth, plenty of clearance. The drive shaft is nowhere near the Y, which is one of the problems on these. You can see the drive shaft, look at how close the drive shaft is to the Y-link. And even in stock, if you start to get any sort of flexing in there or articulation, you will rub. This does not look like it's going to have any of that issue whatsoever. You have tons of space in there. So that's nice. But I guess that's the benefit of building a chassis that's not really a 1/24th. It's much closer to a 1/18th. All right, I think that's all for the basics here. Let's go ahead and we're going to pop apart the rear here. We're going to pull off a wheel and get into the axle and the portals, and we'll see what those are looking like. So these wheel nuts, it comes with this tool, and they are 5.5 millimeters, so not the same as the SCX24 as far as the wheel nut is concerned. However, I believe the hex is the exact same as the SCX24. Bam. So that is a stock wheel and tire from an SCX24, and it fits. So that's nice. It means we have some more wheel options for the SCX24 and tons of wheel options for this guy. So it was a little tight. I believe this axle is a 2.5. So just make sure that your wheel is drilled for a 2.5. Yeah, it looks like 2.8. It's a little bigger. But you saw, we just took one of our random stock wheels and slapped it on there. If this were aluminum, though, it may need just a tiny bit of help to make it over the axle. So another question a lot of people are going to have are about these wheels and tires. Let's open them up. They are actual B-locks. They're like the only thing on the whole rig that uses a Phillips head. Just kind of odd. They easily could have used a hex head. No foam. Here's the inner ring. Interesting. Looks like there's some lips to align on here, maybe. I'm not sure what these slots are for, actually, because the wheels look fine. There's no, like, slot to set in, so I don't know why those slots are in the ring. Maybe it's just to help hold the tire in? Maybe. There is like a little nipple here, and that goes in this little hole, so make sure you're aligning your inner and outer portion of your wheel. Alright, let's measure this again. So the tires are basically in diameter, 2.3 inches in diameter. The inner ring is 1.4 and a half. Yeah. 1.4. The outer diameter of the wheel is 1.43. The inner diameter is 1.35. And then the ring, 1.6 on the ring. That's interesting. With the inner diameter of the ring being 1.37. So there's all your different measurements. I have seen some people stretch 1.0 tires on there. My guess is it'll work. You're just going to stretch it. Your issue might be your foams. These are for Trail Kings. I mean, you're going to rip your foam if you try to put a foam around here, because this inner ring is very large. So you might have to trim your foams. Yeah, I don't know. You'll just have to mess with it. Take the risk, buy some tires, or if you've got some tires already, you can try stretching them around. But obviously, there's no way you're fitting this tire on a 1-inch wheel, so you can almost fit the whole tire in there. Mind you, these are little guys. Here's the stock. These aren't little guy racing, sorry. These are just smaller tires. These are the Super Swamp, Injora Super Swampers. Alrighty, let's get them back together. I mean, it is pretty awesome that a stock, cheaper $150 rig comes with actual bead locks. Mind you, they're plastic, but still, like, how cool is that? It'd be nice if the Axials came with a bead lock tire. That way you could pull the tires off and keep the original wheels. And what am I doing here? Lining this little nipple is proving to be a pain. I don't know why you need to have the nipple there. I guess it's to align the screw holes. It's to help you align the screw holes, but I don't know. Yeah, not a fan of this little nipple here. Could use a paper clip trick. We actually use safety pin to kind of align. There we go. Yeah, helps align it a little bit. Ta-da! But yeah, we like that this. We'd rather have it this than glued stock wheels and tires like Axial provides. So here's our hex. There's our T-pin or axle pin. There's our axle shaft. And let's go ahead and get into this portal here. All these screws are 1.5 millimeter. And here's the guts. So the portals are plastic. I don't think you can expect too much for $150, but plastic isn't the worst. Yes, they could be brass, but I don't think this is a big deal. I think it's better that there are bearings. Again, this thing has 24 sets of bearings on here, from the portals to the transmission. And if you notice here, we've got 3 bearings showing right there. So that's good. A lot of the other aftermarket portals don't come with bearings, especially the brass ones, and that's just not ideal. That's how you get tons of slop. Here's our axle shaft, another set of bearings. Well, a bearing on the back. We just saw that front one. And let's go ahead and pull off this portal case. So the axle is hexed, the axle housing. So you cannot clock, I mean, you could, I guess, clock this like so if you wanted to adjust how high your portal was sitting, and maybe even adjust your wheelbase if you really wanted to for some reason. So you change it from that to this. There's no issue there. You can even go like this. You do not interfere with your shock, so that's good. And that will lower your ride height a little bit and narrow your wheelbase or widen your wheelbase, or shift the whole thing forward if you do the fronts and backs, or rake it if you wanted to rake it so you could be lower in the back or higher in the back. Well, lower in the front, you can't really go higher. You can even go upside down if you really wanted to. Drop it down. Not ideal, but maybe you want to make a drag truck. This little transmission is no joke. It is fast. The 2-speed definitely gives you some go. So, all right, let's go ahead and open up the, hopefully we might have to pull off this as well. We can open up the differential, the entire axle housing. Pull this guy right off. Yep, simple as that. It basically, this portal part basically just pinches is what happens. Put it on there and you tighten this, and it helps kind of, actually there's a little bit of grooves in there, so the screw will just kind of help hold it in there. And 4 screws for our axle. And all these screws so far seem to be the same length. I think they're just M2 screws. All right, and here is the diff. So this is not worm gear. I kind of like that. It is a ring and pinion with some pretty good sized bearings in there. And I believe there's a bearing. Whoa. I believe there's a bearing in there. If we look at the exploded view included in the manual, I'm not going to pull this part out. But they are greased up. And we have our pinion and our ring. So I approve there. That's where the speed comes from. Now this could be a weak point. The ring and pinion is technically, it's a weaker design than the worm gear. You're going to end up potentially breaking or chipping teeth a little more easily than on a worm gear, but you're going to get more speed and power, I guess, out of the diff being ring and pinion. They like to use ring and pinion on the monster trucks. You get better freewheeling depending on your transmission, and just higher speeds in general. This is definitely much higher speed than worm gear. But that's an interesting design. Like I said, these axles, I think the axle design is good overall. I feel like this could be a little better, the way the portals attach, because I feel like even with the screw in there, you probably could pull these off. And then the way the shocks mount and the links mount, I really wish they had a better shock mounting solution, even if it were just on top of where the links mount right here, just an extra hoop that you can mount them separately. Not a fan of that. I kind of understand why they did it, because you can see the portal case goes right there, and so you can't, I mean, I guess you could put the shock mounting as part of the portal case. That would be interesting. Then you couldn't clock it. Not that that's really something you would do, but I don't know. It'd be interesting to know their thoughts behind why they use this setup. Maybe they just find it acceptable. Maybe they find it preferable. I'm not sure on why, but maybe there is a reason. So plastic gears in there, definitely something that will, if you push a lot of power, are going to need upgraded. But again, it's 150 bucks. I'll be honest, the feel of this rig, when I just hold this chassis in my hands, and I'm messing with it, and I feel it, even being plastic, I don't think the plastic versus metal rails is a very big deal, and I don't think there's a good argument for the metal rails. Everybody uses carbon fiber, or there's even 3D printed rails and all kinds of stuff, so I don't think you can argue, well, they're metal, so it's better. This feels solid. This feels like, there's something about it. I don't know, it's weird. It feels, with the exception of this, I'm not really a fan of the steering drag links and stuff, but it feels solid. It feels quality. It doesn't feel as, I don't know, when I mess with the deadbolt, it just kind of feels, the springs feel weak, and I don't know, just, I remember the first time I touched a deadbolt, I just was like, well, this is cool, but like, it kind of feels cheap. This doesn't feel as cheap to me for some reason, and I don't know, maybe it's just the type of plastic they're using, or because it's thicker plastic, or maybe it's just, it feels smoother. Doesn't mean it's better, just telling you it feels good. Again, I'm not saying it's higher quality, or it's better quality, or it's preferred, but it feels good. You know, I'm not going to complain about that. It doesn't feel cheapy and sloppy. It feels solid. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull a shock apart. Let's check out the shocks. Oh, I don't know if I can just pull the shock off. Let's see. I really hate when they're like pressed ball joints, because I feel like they're easy to break. We don't want to break them. I know they should just pop off, but sometimes they don't. And these double ball joints are just a pain to get off the links. And I did on my Enduro 24 break one of these links trying to pop the ball joint off. So, all right, so here's a shock. I mean, they feel good. They feel smooth. They're just plastic, but they feel good. The spring rate seems good for this. Let's see if we can pull it apart. Okay, just looks like your standard entry-level OEM shock. There's kind of this weird like housing cover here, and it spins, but I can't get it off, and I don't know if it just, oh, it just pops off. I'm not sure if maybe there's supposed to be O-rings in there. Maybe that's what these O-rings are for, so you can put them on the shock, or inside of here. If you were to drop an O-ring inside of here, you might be able to hold some shock oil. They look about right. It's probably what they're for. Shock shaft seems fine. Yeah, like I said, you probably put an O-ring on there. You could probably put one on the inside, maybe, and on the outside here. And then put your little housing cover on top. Looks like it just snaps on. And then you're able to have a little bit of dampening. Put a little bit of oil in there. Not a lot, just a little, just to kind of make sure it runs smooth over the O-rings. And it'll kind of help dampen it. shock shafts are pretty beefy. Here, get the stock shock here. Here's a comparison, right? So they are much taller. The shock shaft looks about the same diameter, so I don't think your shock shaft, maybe it's a little thicker. I'm sure I can measure it, but actually, yeah, let's go ahead and measure it. I'm curious. Whoa. Two millimeter shock shaft. And the SCX24. I think it might be a 1.5. It is 1.5. Okay, so it's 0.5 millimeter thicker shock shaft. A little more beefy, so that's good. You would expect that on a 1/18 scale. And again, if you want to adjust your preload on these, you have to use these little shock collars. Ballers, 20-inch blades on the Impalas. Holler. Anyway, sorry, showing my age. Cool. So we just noticed, I don't know if you can see it, but the Y-link right here has a little metal ball in there. So like the little ball joint is metal, so that's nice. I don't know what's going on here. Actually, let's pull this out real quick, I'm curious. Oh, you can kind of see it. I'm going to pull it out all the way. Looks like there's a metal sleeve here as well. So that's what goes into the chassis rail, and then the screw into the Y-link. Feels good. Like it doesn't bind. So I wanted to point out that the ESC is mounted using like one of those foam double-sided stickies, right? The power button is glued to the ESC, maybe to the chassis a little bit. The servo wires are kind of glued into the chassis a little. You can see I just kind of popped that out, but I don't think they're really glued in there. I think they're just kind of some glue dripped on top of them to hold them together so they don't go everywhere. But I think all this stuff should pop out pretty easily. Yeah, actually the button's not glued to the chassis. It looks like if I was to pull the ESC out, the power button would come with it. So I think it's just the double-sided tape and some screws for the servo. So I want to get into this transmission. Let's do it. Let's get in here. I think that screw was actually a different size. So I'm going to check in just a second here. I mean, it is a different size screw, but I'm curious if the hex is a 1.3. No. It was just very tight. It was just a very tight 1.5. The 1.3 just spins, so. Oh, look at that. Transmission literally just kind of falls out. So, be careful of your servo link, I guess. The servo link. You don't want to bend that. You can see the servo link is just kind of this wire rod. Pretty simple. And this feels kind of heavy duty here. I mean, it's plastic, but let's go ahead and open it up. I'm pretty sure these internals are also going to be plastic. So don't be surprised when they are. Okay, so we have a brass pinion. It is a little greased up in here, so that's good. That's basically our spur gear. And you can see inside there, the rest of the gears are all plastic. So my guess is everything in here is plastic. I'm not going to take it all apart. Trying to see down in there. Yeah, it's going to be all plastic. That's just going to slide our gear back and forth and give us our first and second gears. So we're not going to tear this completely down. Maybe in a future video, if we're going to do metal upgrades or something along those lines, we can tear it down completely. I just wanted to see, are they metal or are they plastic? And they are plastic. If you guys really want to see a teardown of this, tell me in the comments. If I get enough comments, we'll open it back up and we'll completely tear down the transmission. But there is an exploded view in the manual, and I can show you that here. Let me get this back together. So I just thought I would show as well the transmission housing compared to the stock SCX24 transmission housing. Unfortunately, I don't have one just sitting out, but maybe this guy will give you a decent view. So it mounts like this. This is the bottom. That is pretty significant in size. So it's definitely much taller. It's much taller. And it's big. Okay. It's much wider. I don't know if we can show the width very easily here. Let's just say I don't think you're easily fitting this transmission in an SCX24. The mounting is very different as well. It's got these 4 square mounting points, whereas the SCX24 has 2 and then like a third little screw and then one on the inside here. So again, just very, very different. I'm sure somebody can come up with a belly plate or cut this belly plate out of here and figure out a way to mount it, and then you have your 2-speed in an SCX24. But it's definitely going to take some fabbing, and again, it's about that high. That's the height difference. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's about where you're at. It's very tall. Again, 2-speed though. Getting this little transmission link back in there is pretty easy. You just kind of turn it, get it around the bend, and you're good to go. Just make sure you're not actually bending it when you're trying to reinstall. Oh, our drive shaft's not down. There we go. Okay. Another thing, since we're in here, and I like to talk about it all the time, try to phase your drive shaft if you ever take out your transmission. Phasing your drive shaft means having your shaft here, one continuous piece from ear to ear. So you can see the ear here, and then on this side, it's got its ear. And you want them to be lined up straight. So you don't want it like this. That would be not in phase, right? So your ear's here, and then your ear on the shaft middle is here. Put them facing the same direction. Another key way to do that is to have your bolts right here facing the same direction. So if this one's facing up, turn this, if you can see it. I don't know if we'll be able to see it in here. Oh, there it is. Turn this until it faces up as well. So now both bolt hole here, facing up, and then put your drive shaft together. So it's one continuous link. We may not be able to do this easily because of doing both drive shafts. We might have to actually take something apart here. But we'll go ahead and put our drive shaft together and get our transmission back in, and we'll come back. So one of the main reasons to have your drive shaft in phase is to reduce vibration at higher speeds. And because this truck is a little bit faster than your normal crawler, you may see some effect and vibration in your drive line if you do not phase your drive shafts. Remember this smaller screw, because there were 4 screws, one of them was smaller, goes right here. It's in the back rear where your transmission, it's hard to see, but basically where the transmission link for the shifting and the servo. You can see there's the shift link. That's the shorter screw because it will go through and hit that if you use a long screw. So just make sure you're using put the screws back where you took them out. Okay. We should be good. Now, after taking all that apart, we do want to test it. So let us do a quick test. Always be sure to never plug in your battery backwards. If for some reason you plug in your battery backwards, you will fry it. Here's the remote. We haven't even taken a look at this yet. We'll get to this here in a minute. Let's check our gear shift. All right. Seems good. So there's not a whole lot more to look at. I mean, everything is pretty much going to be the same on the front. Except, let's see if we have dog bones or CVDs. Let me get the back together, and then we'll do the front. I just want to point this out as well. I love that the hex sits on the axle, right? You've got a T-pin in there, but then the hex actually sits right on the axle. So what that means is you can't over tighten. You throw your lug nut on here and you're not over tightening. There's no such thing. And that is pretty awesome. Because a lot of the newbie issues, newer people issues, come from over tightening. So it doesn't matter how tight. I mean, you don't want to strip it. You don't want to over tighten. You don't really want to over tighten anything ever. But there's no actual over tightening of your wheels, which is just sick. Like we always have. That's one of the things I have to always modify on the SCX24. I have to always trim down their little hex hubs and make sure that the pin is sitting on the hex, or the hex is sitting on the pin and not rubbing on the bearing or the axle housing. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty awesome. So the fronts are the same. They've got that little hex hub, the axle pin, and that sits on the portal axle here. Now let's go ahead and pull that portal axle out. Now I'm sure the internals on this are going to be the same, with the exception of the C-cup or maybe CVD. We'll see. It's a single piece. It's got the little aluminum bushings that go in the C-hub here. I'm going to pop this out so we don't lose it. Is this one not going to come out? Alright, so hold on. This looks like it's there it is. A single piece CVD, so it doesn't look like it's dog bone and C-cup. That's interesting. Ooh, buddy, it is. Look at that. And a bearing. And it looks like there's a housing cup. Alright, hold on. We're gonna take it apart. We're going in. We're going in. We're going deep. This is cool, actually. A lot of people in the SCX24 world have been waiting for somebody to do some decent CVDs and portals. Again, I just wish the axle housings on this were a little better. However, something of note, being that these are just like C-hubs, I wonder if these would fit on the portal C-hubs for the SCX24. That there's I think the RC all-wheel drives, maybe the RC four-wheel drives, I can't remember which one, has this same style C-hub. And if it's the same width, if these portals are the same height, really, well, I don't think the axle shaft's going to be the same. Never mind. I'm talking for no reason. You need the whole axle assembly here. Just wish the axles had shock mounting points. Dang it. Then you could direct replace them on SCX24. Alright, so that part's the same. And then this part here, boom, with a giant bearing. Let's pull off our nylon gear. There's our bearing. And there's our CVD. Looks like there's a little axle pin or T-pin there to pull off. Let's get this out of here. Let's try. And this should just slide right out. No? Oh, that's for the gear. That's for the gear. That little T-pin is for this gear. That makes sense. So this does have a pin still in here. My guess is that pin is pressed in. Oh, no, it's not. We can just push it right out. Boom. There you go. It's a nice round cup. And just slides around in there. And then we've got our little shaft in here. See that? Whoa, don't lose parts. Smash them, crash them, bash them, don't lose parts. Alright, so that's cool. Let's get it back together. And it's all greased up. Everything in here is nice and greased. I really like this setup here. I mean, I really like the way they did this. Again, if they were metal gears, that would probably be ideal. Then they'd be loud. But man, how good is that? Look at that. It's got really good turn angle. And it's bearings. It's bearings. So I just want to say that is pretty awesome that this has actual CVDs on it, not C-cups and dog bones. That is exciting. I am super happy for that. Big ups to them for doing that, taking that extra little step. And like I said, overall, the axle design seems really good. It seems solid. I just wish, again, that it was metal gears. But again, what can you expect for 150 bucks? The actual design, though, is fantastic. Kind of wish it was 4-link like advertised, or at least don't advertise it as 4-link. Be nice to have a little bit better steering links. Overall, though, guys, I think this thing is awesome. I think this is probably worth the money if you can get past, well, the fact that it's not a 124 scale. Again, it's not. I feel like they're just kind of trying to jump on the 124th bandwagon, but they definitely brought stuff that the SCX24 and other 124s don't have. I mean, it's the first with a 2-speed transmission. That's huge. It comes with portals and CVDs. That's huge. The receiver actually seems really good and robust with all the light options, even though it's non-standard to SCX24 plugs. It is a seems like a good receiver. The transmitter, we'll get to that here in a second. I wish there were more shock mounting locations, and I wish that the axle design here was different. Again, the biggest drawback to these axles, in my opinion, are the shock mounting locations. I wish there was a better setup for that. Just having that option, I mean, just an extra truss right on top of there to mount your shocks to, or even on, maybe on the portals. I don't know, something. Just give us something other than this one mounting position, because that really sucks. The truss here is built onto the axle pumpkin, so it's not a removable truss like the SCX24. It is part of the rear portion of the axle housing, and then on the front, it is the exact same. I actually think the front, yeah. So the front axle and the rear axle housings are the exact same. The servo tray is just this small little bracket that mounts to the front, using the same front holes, and then your servo just mounts to that. But the rear truss is part of the axle housing. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry. Right in there. Same as the rear. I don't know what else to say about it, though. I think overall, like I said, for 150 bucks, we have to run it for a while, see how the motor holds up. I bet it holds up better than the SCX24 motor. It's a much bigger motor, although 2-speed transmission might put more wear and tear on it. And then the servo, it looks like, let's go ahead and pull that out real quick, actually. So there's the servo. Here's an SDRC. It's the same footprint on the top, but a little longer in the back. I'm curious. Let's slap this in here real quick. Does it hit the links? I don't know. Yes, it does. So it looks like you have to about right there. You can see that gap maybe. It's a decent angle. So you have this gap here before you start to hit the links on the rear here. You could push this all the way in. Then you're riding up on the link a little bit. So you will probably need a bracket that's either a little more forward, again, or you can shim it. It's not too much space. Your steering geometry will be slightly different. You could also just get a new bracket, this whole bracket piece, maybe that sits a little higher, but again, then your steering geometry here will change just a little bit. Not too bad, but if it sits a little higher, say you mounted it here, right? Maybe 3 millimeters up, you completely clear the rear link. So you should be able to fit some bigger servos in there, longer servos anyway. The Emax is the same size. Heck, for all we know. Nope, it's a little smaller actually. Emax is just a tad smaller. Let's see, there we go. You can see that, right? Emax is just a tad smaller. So Emax will probably be the preferred in here again if you're looking for a mid-range. But and this DRC and this larger size is going to take just a little bit extra space and some work to get in there. But overall, again, it's a very simple servo bracket, and I think you've got room to raise it up. If you needed to raise it up just 2-3 millimeters to get a larger servo to fit in there, it's probably worth it. Where did my servo go? Am I blind? Oh. You will have to change out the plug, though, of course. So if you end up burning up the servo, you probably want to end up saving it and cutting the cable and rewiring it with your new cable, with this cable onto your new servo. All right, we got it all back together, got our battery in there. We're ready to check some stuff out, but I wanted to go back and touch on some points. I'm going to kind of show you some stuff from the manual. It mentions in the manual here that the crawlers are generally, the crawlers are generally equipped with front and rear straight axles to simulate the lock state of the rear car differential to improve off-road passing ability. The FCX24 is equipped with a straight axle by default, but the planetary gear differential can also be replaced with a high viscosity silicone oil to simulate the driving effect of an LSD limited slip differential. After installing the differential, the ultimate climbing ability will be reduced, but a smaller turning radius and more stable high-speed driving quality can be obtained. Simply put, the straight axle is suitable for extreme climbing, and the limited slip differential is suitable for high-speed off-roading. The choice is yours. So, maybe some extra parts coming, I guess. They also mentioned back here that unlike previous FMS models, the FCX24 focuses more on sports performance. A large number of upgraded and modified parts such as metal gears, shock absorbers, high-performance motors, radiators, interesting, and wheel hub counterweights will be launched simultaneously. Players from all over the world look forward to creating your own unique FCX24. So if they're really going to support this with a ton of different aftermarket parts, that'll be interesting. And I think it's required. And not only do they need to provide, but other manufacturers need to provide. And they need to encourage that in any way they can to get aftermarket manufacturers to provide extra stuff. Also, here's some specs. If you want to pause, you can check out the specs. If you want to pause and read this whole thing, go for it. Speaking of which, there is a background story here. The Mudmaster is held every June in Manic? Yeah. In New Orleans, Louisiana. Okay, so there's that. If you guys want to read it, you can pause. And then we'll slide it up. And you can pause. And that's all you get. And then it says to be continued. Anyway, there's about the model. It mentions the 9G steering servo. Also, the low gear reduction ratio is 99 and the high speed is 24.75. So a bunch of good information there. Here's the remote. You can probably find this all online in a PDF, but we'll just show it here real quick because, like I said, you can always pause. It's a powerful feature. Here's some binding information, ESC protection, ESC function instructions, fail-safe, so there's a way to set it in LiPo mode and nickel metal hydride, which you can see here. There's also, by default, it's forward, reverse, and brake, so you give it throttle, you go forward. Right here. Give it throttle, you go forward, then you hit back, and it brakes. It doesn't go in reverse, it just brakes, and then you have to let off and go back again to get reverse. Not ideal for a crawler, but it's there. It's usually for higher speed cars and bashers and stuff. You can change that to forward and reverse, which we will do right now, which is the first dip switch. These are called dip switches. Boom. And you also have the battery type LiPo, which gives you the low voltage cutoff, as well as, I believe, it checks temperature. So it's watching for temperature so it doesn't fry. And then some drag brake stuff, 0%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. And you can set that information here. All right. Anything else? What else we got? Oh, yeah, the light thing. I think I showed that earlier. And here's this. Explanations of those things. And then your normal stuff. It does not come with AAA's for the remote, which is kind of annoying, so it's not totally ready to run, but close enough. There's connecting the battery. Here's operating the vehicle. Again, just pause on these. Spare parts list. Looks like a bunch of spare parts and the part numbers. That's good. And putting it together. And then the foreign language sections. Here's the exploded view. Boom. Just in case. There's the wheels and the frame sets. There's the front axle. If we looked at this, we would have noticed it was a CVD. Still don't know if they're plastic or metal gears, so we wanted to look anyway, but boom, there's the rear axle. Sorry guys, just figured I'd show you this. And if you don't want to see it, you can skip forward using the little bookmarks at the bottom. And if you do want to see it, you'll be happy that I'm showing it. Because sometimes you take them apart, throw away the manual, whatever. There's the planetary gear for the diff set. Man, I wish we would have gotten that as our freebie, because it does not come with that. Differential set. So if you got the differential set, lucky you. We did not. I think the two best things on this list are definitely the differential set and extra battery. Yeah, those are the best things on this list of 5 options here. Here's the transmitter for this guy. This is the FMS. It's all analog, So that's kind of nice, with the exception of the channel 4, which goes through 5 different stages or settings. They're calling this the V3, so I don't know if there's previous versions. Again, I'm not familiar with FMS. This is my first one, so yeah, this is our first time checking it out. Looks like there's a lanyard slot. It is the only remote out of all of these remotes that is just a hard wheel. I don't like that. I wish it came with one of the foam rubber type wheels. The steering feels really good. It's kind of tight. I like a more tight feeling steering, and it's very responsive when on the vehicle. I like the way it feels. I just wish it had a foam tire on it. You can always pull it off and put an actual, I've seen people put actual SCX24 tires on there and whatever. I could probably swap this out or get a foam, put it on there. You know, you can change it, but I kind of wish it would have came with the foam. So some feedback there. There's your channel 3. So you have your forward, or your slow and your fast on your 2-speed. It's actually a 3-channel switch though. So if this normally is for, I don't know if the servo is specific to just doing full left and full right, but normally on a channel 3 that's 3 position like this, it's left, center, right. So there may be a way to change that in here, but for now, and maybe the servo, I'm not sure, but this is how I usually do 4-wheel steering on like a stock remote. Our bind, 2 different LEDs, our battery LED, and then it's all analog for our steering, dual rate, steering trim, throttle, dual rate, and throttle trim, which I really like that. So that's very cool. Reverse throttle, reverse steering. So we have all those settings. It's very nice if you end up doing a new motor or removing the portals and you have to reverse your throttle, you can just do it there. That way you don't have to rewire something or do something like that. Our dip switches, which I showed in the manual, and that's pretty it. The throttle feels okay. It's not the best, not the worst, but overall it's not a bad remote. Like I said, it does not come with the batteries. It requires 4 AAAs. It feels decent. It's small. It's a small remote. It's the smallest of all of them. This is the Enduro 24 remote. So you can see there, this is a little smaller. This remote also breaks down, which is actually kind of nice when you have a bunch of these. This also is for the Mini Bs and Mini Ts by Losi. There's a bunch of different companies that use these, but you can break them down and pack them away pretty nicely if you're taking a bunch of trucks or buggies or rigs or whatever with you. It's also analog. Some versions of this are digital, and they're digital buttons to trim, but you can see the size difference. They're about the same weight. This is the Kyosho for the Mini Zs, for both the cars and the buggies and the crawlers. Significantly different size there. This guy is the version 2 for the SCX24. Quite a significant difference. This definitely feels more hobby grade. This remote feels really good. Unfortunately, it does not have analog. I like the analog, but it does have channel 4, channel 3. So very similar in features as to this, except for the different dip switches we have. And then the version 1, which many of you are very familiar with the analog, but unfortunately there's no way to do throttle trims or dual rate other than this high, medium, or medium, low, medium, and high. And then we have a channel 3 up here, so if you were doing 4-wheel steering, you can drive like this, do your left and right rear steer, and then a channel 1 reverse for your steering reverse. But again, this is not about these remotes, it's about this remote. I just wanted to compare to the others. There's a significant size difference, but again, it doesn't feel horrible, just not as significant as these. But it is smaller, which is nice if you're traveling, throwing it in a backpack, right? And the SX24s, I do kind of wish sometimes that these were a little smaller. I like the flatness of this remote because I can actually stack them and put them like this, and they fit in my box well. And then obviously this one, the fact that it can come apart is pretty nice. So they all have redeeming features and qualities, but and these are big. They feel nice if you have large hands, which I do, so they feel good. But again, traveling, if you're taking 5 or 6 rigs and you want people to have remotes to borrow them so you can share, you're taking 5 or 6 of these big old remotes as well. Yeah, so that's it. Let's go ahead and run it, I guess. We're going to run it. Let's run it. Man, killed it. First try. Legit, first try. Jeez. The slow crawl on this thing is ridiculous. I mean, I think it's as good as the V2s almost. And then the high speed is obviously just insane. This is all low speed right now, but you saw the high speed, it's crazy. There's a slow crawl. I mean, come on. All right, I've got to point this out. We took some, I mean, I'm bashing this thing. I'm full speed, second gear, just trying to rock race it up there, and we're tumbling down, and that's a no joke fall. I mean, that's onto, you know, brick and stuff. And look at this. I mean, a little bit on the fender here. Well, not even, that's just dirt. This was a little bit here. Got some beat up here. Oh, is that mostly dirt too? I mean, but the paint, like, there's no scratches on the paint. This thing, I beat it. I've been beating it. Like, you don't see all the footage. I don't show you every roll. Like, yeah, dude, I'm impressed. So why don't you tell me in the comments below what you think of this little guy? We think it's pretty cool. There are some disappointing points, and we made those, but overall, I think FMS did a fantastic job with this rig. The detail's amazing. I mean, everything we went through, all the positives, even with some of the negatives like the size and the scale, and the 4 links. What is that about? But besides that, tell us in the comments below, what do you think? Do you like this thing? What color would you get if you were to get one? And if you did get one, what color did you get? Yeah, anyway, be sure to like, subscribe, share this in all your crawler groups. If somebody has any questions and we answered them with this video, share this video to them. Also, be sure to check out all of our other videos. We have a ton of other videos and playlists for the different SCX24s and just other mini and micro RCs. So yeah, give us a thumbs up, give us a share, give us a comment. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe. That helps us out in so many ways, and it's just a click for you, but it means the world to us. So if you're not a subscriber, you should be. And we really appreciate all the other subscribers. And if you're watching this video at the time of it being posted or within a couple days, we are almost to 1,000 subscribers. 1,000 subscribers in just 3 months. That's amazing, guys. You guys are amazing. Keep it up. Get out there, run your cars, smash them, crash them, bash them, but don't break the expensive parts.